Love answers all. It's beyond shapes, form, concepts, names, identity. It is the source of life. It is truth. It is knowing. I would just look through a lot of my book collection, really. You know, when I started this path, this journey, try to find myself, try to find freedom. First, it was just being free. And I looked at the stacks of books that were there. And I thought, you know, well, if I'm going to be free, I would need to know about law, commerce. I would have to be financially free. Enrolled in classes. I did real estate. So I went through all the real estate, all of what I could while I was on the go. Because I would let it play in my car. It had like automatic. But the last chapter, the very last chapter, and it was like more like a review chapter, was not was totally reading. So I couldn't listen to it in the car. So I just stopped there. But something within me said to stop. It was once I got to a point where things started to get quiet. I remember freedom. That's not freedom at all. It's not in the shape, form, or concept. It's not in with the mind. And if I could show you, and I actually have it all written down on, I bought a little, you know, like a dry erase board, and I listed all of the things I wanted to, you know, manifest to get to this freedom, you know, that I was searching for. And of course, it was real estate, sell so many houses a week, coding. I even had coding on there. I know nothing of it. I decided I was going to go to this coding classes, which I started taking online, you know, a little bit. But it was still just like, I don't know, looking at a foreign language, you know. It didn't resonate really. And anyway, I had this, all of this stuff, this mind stuff, and I'm just going down, and I looked at it today. I looked at this board that was filled up of tags. Every day I listed out what that I was going to do in order to reach. I put all my goals on the top, and then each day I put how I was going to reach the goals and what requirements. You know, I got 2 hours of just real estate. And the real estate I actually did finish. I just never took my test, you know. I finished it except for that last little review section. And I could have went and tested, but it was just something within me at that point that said that's enough. And it was like the mind took me through all of these places. And I've written there at the top to let go of ego. Because like I said in another video, I talked about how I traveled through religion. It was like I was I was in Christianity initially. And it was just like one day the lights went out. It's like the dark night of the soul. I was sitting there in a class and I could see the movement of everything, but it was just like there was this empty space. And it was just, I felt so disconnected, you know, just disconnected from everything that was happening around me. It was just like something needed to change. And although I was here, I was there in, it was like a couples class. I felt very disconnected. And so there was a searching that began. And it led me through more religion because I went into Hebrew, you know. Went through that. I was like, all these laws and Our people were brought across the water and all of this stuff. Uh, which was, it still was an awareness, a level of opening up. It's like my being was taking me the path that I needed to go in order to find me, which is closer than my skin. I didn't need to be out there, although that was the path that was taken, was external path of learning all about the stories of how everything, worked as pertaining to America and law, government, commerce, and all of that stuff. Just opening up, creating a bed for me to learn, or to be willing to be open to myself, really. Because with all the bells, there has to be some layers that comes off prior to, just some unveiling. And that's the path that my being knew that I needed in order to find what wasn't already lost. And I looked, as I said, I went through all of that. I was just sitting there in that class, and it was just like lights went out. And then something said, this is not it. This is not that wasn't, a place where you could find love. It's this, for me, I haven't found me. I didn't get to the God here, the source of life. I was looking for it outside, just in the church or in the book, the Bible, but I had yet to find it within myself. Though I had practices, and I have moments of peace and love and feeling, connected with the people around me. And I had moments where I felt connected with myself, with the source of life. We would call God the creator. But it was fleeting, and I didn't recognize it in a way that where there was no sense of separation. And so these were the paths that I took, and I looked at all the books. I was in my room, and like I said, I had a dry erase board of everything I needed in order to gain this freedom, because I learned about that in the Hebrew University. I went through that. And I learned that, in order to be free, you had to be competent. Law, government, and commerce. It was all these things on the outside. And one thing that the teacher did talk about, which I think was a gem, and that's the biggest thing that I picked up, the most significant thing that I picked up was, you got to get rid of your ego. Without ego, you cannot see clearly. I mean, with the ego, you can't see clearly, yourself clearly. That stuck with me. Out of everything, all the, knowledge, because knowledge was plenty of that. It was plenty stories and knowledge, but it was no knowing, which is real. Knowing is truth. Knowing is the source of life. Knowledge comes from the mind, the egoic perspective. So as I looked at my journey of that dry erase board, and I tried to, actually, I don't know, I must have been writing to make it in cement, because I tried to erase all of that and nothing came off. So I had a dry erase board that I was writing with, I guess, permanent ink. And I tried to take alcohol and erase it, because I was like, well, we don't need these anymore. Because it was a lot of doing. It was a lot of knowledge that needed to be there. It was a lot of things on the external, that was thought was needed in order to be freedom. To find that freedom. Freedom that was never lost. And I was really never bound. So is there a need to really even be free? But was that necessary? Sometimes, depending on where you're at, those things are necessary. Your own being will route you in a place where you need to be. Amongst all those tags that I had for me during the day, it helped me until one day at the very last chapter of my real estate, it was like this. It's just like my own being said, just be quiet. And that's what I did. I dropped all of that. I dropped all of the knowledge that I can attain from the outside, all of the activities to go here 2 hours doing this and doing that to obtain this and obtain that. All of that, once I got to a point where I can actually unveil in order to hear, was dropped. And then I went into silence. Not only was it an inward silence, because initially it wasn't silent inside. I had to create or manifest that or unveil that space outside of myself. So the outside became quiet. And I just sat with myself over and over. And somehow within myself, into that intuitive nature, knew that's where I needed to be at that time, that moment. I needed to be silent on the outside in order to recognize silence within myself. So amongst all the mind chattering and everything, my being would give me nuggets of bliss to let me realize that, hey, there is something to this. It wasn't just me sitting. Things started to wake up within my being. Well, my being was already woke within my body. Sensations started to happen, Before you knew it, peace was recognized within. I say within, but it was just recognized it was here. My nature started to be more recognizable amongst all of the noise, all of the chatter, all of the identity. Past all of that, once I could unveil all of those things, the beliefs, even what I had about myself, who I was, it was all connected to this story that I was given. Stories of LaNette, stories of Hebrew, stories of American stories of African American, Black stories, all of those stories. Physical therapist, graduate, woman. All of these were just the stories of conditioning that had to be unveiled, that had to be let go. The attachments that I had, they had to be let go. There was friends that were here, they're no longer here. There were loved ones that I surrounded myself with. They used to be in the immediate doings of the day that no longer. Those attachments have been severed. I mean, they're still there. I still call family members and whatnot. But I'm no longer mind, body, Lynette. It's just the universe responding and reacting, and the universe engaging with the universe. I guess there's no really engagement there. It's just one. So it's from heart to heart. It's just being to being. But these are the paths that, so if there's a book that you have to pick up, it's okay. Because there's all kind of books that I've read since they're on telekinesis, this and that. All of these are wonderful and they're entertaining too. Doesn't mean you have to let go of doing any of that, any of the things that you like. You know, it's no right or wrong way or right or wrong path, you know, to make it to see the recognition of yourself, whatever your being, you know, directs you to is the right way for you. Your being knows what you need. These are just the way that, you know, I was able to see myself for the first time, to recognize the truth of who I am, that I'm not the externals, that I'm not this body, that I'm not the mind that comes and goes, that I'm not a concept, I'm not a shape, I'm not a form. I don't need attachments to love. I don't have to have beliefs in order to recognize myself. I don't even have to have, it doesn't matter what religious backgrounds there is in order for me to see myself, to recognize myself. Myself is not going to go away based on all these externals. It's always here. It was here before the beliefs, before the attachments, before the identities. It was here before the movement of creation, the unveilings, the conditionings. I am here. So this is what came up when I sat here. I usually have something, you know, that I kind of, that came up prior to that I might have written down or pondered over or contemplating. But I said, well, you know what? I'm just going to sit here and turn on the camera and whatever flows will flow. So I thank you all for sharing this moment. Try not to be too hard on yourself ever, because just to enjoy the journey of finding that truth within you, the source of life, the creator, if we want to call that, of all things. Just find that truth within you and be okay with the silence. And even if you're in a moment of doing, it's okay, because you're still there in the midst of the doing also. Thank you for sharing this moment with me. Remember that you are beautiful and I love you. Bye.